projected by the media, and a little surprising actually how strong, how fast, because we have many companies are moving into our country. As you probably know, it's a statistic that everyone talks about, but nobody seems to have done much about. Since the beginning of NAFTA, there's been 90,000 plants and factories closed in this country. Think of that. 90,000 plants and factories have been closed in this country. Many of them have been car manufacturing plants. And that's a terrible statistic, and we'll be turning that around. You're going to see it already. We already have numerous that are being built or starting to be built, and numerous that were being built in other countries, and they stopped, and they're coming here now because of the tariffs. And that's a big deal. That's what you want to hear. During the last year, the Biden administration saw a loss of more than 110,000 manufacturing jobs, or 9,000 manufacturing jobs every single month. It averaged about 9,000 a month, 110,000 manufacturing jobs. During the first full month in office, we've not only stopped that manufacturing collapse, but we've begun to rapidly reverse it and get major gains. We created 10,000 manufacturing jobs in February alone. That hasn't happened in a long time. And these aren't government jobs, which actually we cut. These are private sector manufacturing jobs. So we gained all of those jobs, 10,000 jobs, and we barely started yet. That's a very unusual number. People are surprised by it. I'm even a little surprised. On auto jobs, we created almost 9,000 new jobs in the auto production field. And the reason for that is largely they think things are happening, so they're already geared up. In some cases, they had rooms in their plants, or they had empty plants that they were able to put into use quickly because they see, because of the tariffs, they don't want to be dealing with other places, and they don't want to go back and forth and around and through the borders and across Mexico border and Canada border and all that. They want to have the jobs in one location. And they've had space, and if they had space, they were able to create the jobs almost immediately. In some cases, they'll be building plants to take care of those jobs. So we created 9,000 new jobs already in the auto production, auto parts manufacturing. So we want the auto parts ideally, and I think from a simplicity standpoint too, to be built and made in the United States. It's in a single month. That all took place in a single month, 9,000 new auto jobs. You haven't heard that in a long time. After auto workers lost more than 27,000 auto jobs in the final year of Biden. These are also high-paying jobs. These are very prime jobs. The ISM Manufacturing Survey and the S&P Manufacturing Survey have also confirmed that our administration is presiding over a brand new domestic manufacturing boom after major collapse under Biden. It was a collapse. All he did is keep adding new government jobs, which are not the jobs you want. We're trying to shrink government and grow the private sector. That's what we've been doing. Under the final 2 years of Biden, 1 in every 4 jobs created in America was a government job. That's a tremendous percentage. But under the first full month of President Trump, which we haven't even gotten started yet, an incredible 93% of all job gains were in the private sector. So that statistic just came out. Big gains for native-born Americans. For the first time in 15 months, the job gains for native-born Americans, for American people born in America, exceeded job gains for migrant and foreign-born workers. This is the first time that's happened in more than 15 months. Employment for native-born workers went up by 284,000, while foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. Now, you've heard the same stat where foreign workers were taking up all the jobs, or almost all the jobs. In some cases, literally all of the jobs. And now it's 284,000 native-born jobs here, people born in our country, 284,000. While foreign-born workers went down by 87,000. First time that's happened in a long time. So these are incredible numbers, and they're very early. I mean, we're here for 5 weeks. but we have been talking about it since the big win in November 5th. So a lot of these people, they listen to us speak and they say, well, I'm going to gear up, and they're gearing up. And so they've been gearing up. They've had a little time. It's not just 5 weeks. It's 5 weeks plus a few months. And they put it into effect pretty quickly. They have confidence that what I'm saying is going to happen. So with that, I'd like to ask a highly respected gentleman, Kevin Hassett. He's been with us for a long time, and he's been right about a lot. We had the greatest economy in history in the first term, and Kevin was a big part of it. So Kevin, could you maybe give it a little description, please?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Trump. I think that the three things that you emphasized during the campaign is that you wanted to create domestic, high-paying manufacturing jobs, that you wanted to end wasteful government spending and reduce the unproductive government workers, and in fact unleash them into the private economy where they could be more productive, and to create jobs for Americans. A lot of people said that if you deported illegals, that employment would go down because no Americans would take those jobs. And if you look, 280,000 American-born folks were hired, manufacturing jobs are going up. And this is just out of the expectation of your future policies, really, sir. It's in April when your Reciprocal Trade Act is expected to happen. The tax cuts haven't passed yet. And so people are clearly expecting the golden age. And if you want to forecast the future numbers, everybody, just keep in mind that President Trump has already gotten us $1.7 trillion in commitments of new factories. And those haven't even happened yet. Those aren't even in the numbers. And so I expect this is going to be a glimpse of a golden age to come, sir.
Thank you very much. One other thing. In Canada, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that well taken care of. But under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff. Give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out, on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada, but our numbers are a tiny fraction of that, almost non-existent. And what we're doing is freeing up our forests from the environmental nonsense that they put on them, where you can't cut down a tree. And we have to cut down trees in order to build the firewalls. And those trees are sold, but we're freeing it up on an emergency basis because Canada has been ripping us off for years on tariffs for lumber and for dairy products. 250%, nobody ever talks about that. 250% tariff, which is taking advantage of our farmers, so that's not going to happen anymore. They'll be met with the exact same tariff unless they drop it, and that's what reciprocal means. And we may do it as early. That stops now. I had it stopped in my first term, and we're going to really stop it now because this has been very unfair. Our country, from an economic standpoint, and financial standpoint, and a trade standpoint, has been absolutely ripped off by almost every country in the world. Canada, Mexico. And then you just go right down the line. India charges us massive tariffs, massive. You can't even sell anything into India. It's almost restrictive. It is restrictive. We do very little business inside. They've agreed, by the way, they want to cut their tariffs way down now because somebody's finally exposing them for what they've done. And same thing with China, same thing with a lot of other countries. And the EU has been a terrible abuser of this country. I mean, the EU was formulated in order to take advantage of the United States, and they have taken it, but they're not taking advantage when I'm in charge. So sometimes you'll hear some negative things. It's always from outside countries. America will be very strong. And, if I'm a foreign country, they're going to do fine, but they can't do like they used to do because we're going to bring back our business into this country. We need it from a job standpoint. We need it from even just a psychological standpoint. Think of it, 90,000 factories are gone since the beginning of NAFTA. So we're not going to have that, and we're going to see them build it back. Now we've already had 5 major automobile companies. First time you've heard this in a long time, since my first term, actually. where we were really rocking and rolling, and then Biden came in and he stopped everything, like such a stupid thing to do, not even a believable thing. But we have many auto plants now coming in. We have big chip plants. We have the biggest chip company in the world, most powerful, probably one of the most powerful companies in the world. Wouldn't you say, Kevin? And he's coming in and they're building one of the largest chip plants in the world. That'll be done in Arizona, mostly in Arizona. And that'll give us a big percentage. That one plant will give us a big percentage of the chip market, something we have very little of. You know, we used to have Intel, and Intel was run by a man named Andy Grove. And Andy Grove was a tough, smart guy. I used to read about him when I was a young man, and he did an incredible job. He really dominated the chip business. And then he died, and I guess they had a series of people that didn't know what the hell they were doing, and we gradually lost the chip business, and now it's almost exclusively in Taiwan. They stole it from us. They took it from us, and I don't blame them. I give them credit. I blame the people that were sitting in this seat because they allowed it to happen. We could have protected that so easily, but so we had the chip business, and now it's all in Taiwan, almost exclusive, a little bit in South Korea, but mostly in Taiwan. And it's very important. Everything you do, everything you touch is now about chips. The brake of a car, cars have chips all over the place. I was reading an article the other day where they talk about the brakes of a car are loaded up with chips. Who would think that a brake has a chip in it? But it's all about chips. So that was a big thing. And they'll be investing hundreds of billions of dollars in this country, and we'll be taking back a big portion of that industry. We have others coming in too. But a lot of car manufacturers are coming in, and they're coming in fast. And one of the reasons you see these numbers, and again, Kevin said it, and I said it a little bit, but the fact that they know I won the election, so after I was president-elect, they assumed that I was going to do what I said, because I do what I say. And so these numbers really reflect a lot of things that took place since November 5th. Right? So, Kevin, thank you very much. Great job. Any questions?
Mr. President, how concerned are you that the large-scale federal government layoffs will weaken the labor market? How concerned are you?
The large-scale fentanyl what?
The federal government layoffs will impact the labor market, will weaken the labor market.
Oh. No, I think the labor market's going to be fantastic, but it's going to have high-paying manufacturing jobs as opposed to government jobs. We had too many people in government. You can't just do that. We had many too many. This is for 40 years. You know, this isn't just now. This built up and got worse and worse, and they just hire more and more people. You look at Department of Education, it seems like so many buildings I ride by, it says Department of Education. They're all over the place. And we don't even want it. We want the education to be given by the states. It'll be much better. It'll move us to the top of the list from the bottom of the list, and actually save us money. But it's too important to even talk about them. It'll save us a lot of money, but we don't want that. We want education to be given. So you go to Iowa and Indiana and Idaho and all these places that are so well run. They're going to be producing education that will be the equivalent of, like Denmark is one, Norway, Sweden. Actually, China is one of the better in terms of education, and so we can't blame size anymore. You know, China has 1.4 billion people, but they're very high on the list. The one thing we're doing well on, we're number one on the list, is cost per pupil. We spend more money than any other country in the world by far. So I jokingly say the one thing we do well on is the cost. We spend more money, and yet we're toward the bottom of the list. Yeah.
Mr. President, I want to ask you, the joint address, millions of Americans watched your joint address earlier this week where you warned that there could be a little disturbance that Americans could feel as a function of these taxes, these tariffs. How much disturbance are you willing to accept in the near term as a function of that? And to set expectations, how long should Americans expect things to cost a bit more?
Well, so far, Peter, there hasn't been very much because these numbers are coming out. We're here for just a little over 4 weeks. And these are fantastic numbers. I was watching some of the reports this morning. They were surprised. There could be some disturbance, a little bit of disturbance. I solved a little bit of that because I have respect for our auto companies, and I gave them a little bit of a 1-month reprieve because it was unfair, although I'm sure they'll take advantage of it. I see they're driving a lot of cars into the U.S. to try and avoid the tariffs, and they're taking advantage of it a little bit. But they called me, they asked me, they said, Could they have a little bit of help? And I decided, they're American companies, USMCA, and I let them have that. But this really kicks in the reciprocals, kicks in on, let's see, I guess the 2nd. And I wanted it to be the 1st so badly, just didn't want to be on April Fool's Day. So I made it the 2nd. That's going to cost a lot of money. That one day is going to cost a lot of money, but that's okay. But I don't see it. I don't see anything. I see good reports. I think we're going to have good numbers from the beginning. Now, globalists won't love this because this brings jobs back to America. So if they're coming back to America, maybe you'll lose some in other parts of the world. But the other parts of the world have done very well, and they'll continue to do very well. But I think the United States is going to be doing record business. We'll bring a lot of those 90,000 factories that have been lost over the last number of years. It's been, it's hard to believe. 90,000, think of what 90,000 is. 90,000 plants and factories are gone. We're going to bring back many of those plants and factories.
One day the tariffs are on, the next day they're off. Right now the markets, as you know well, prefer stability. Are you done going forward with the pauses and the carve-outs? Is that it for those?
There'll always be changes and adjustments, and you can't just. I could have, for instance, told the American car companies, "No, I'm not going to give you anything," and then you wouldn't have had to say, "Well, they're getting a little extra." It's just a little bit of a 1-month reprieve.
Or tariffs you might impose on Russia, and when that might be?
We're looking at a lot of things. We have big meetings coming up, as you know, in Saudi Arabia. That's going to include Russia. It'll be Ukraine. We'll see if we can get something done. I'd like to get something done. A lot of people died this week, as you know, in Ukraine. Not only Ukrainians, but Russians. So I think everybody wants to see it get done. We're going to make a lot of progress, I believe, this week.
Is President Putin disrespecting you by attacking Ukraine when you're trying to make peace there? Is President Putin disrespecting you by attacking Ukraine when you're trying to make peace there?
What did he do?
Well, he's attacking Ukraine.
Is he disrespecting me?
Yeah.
Who are you with?
I'm Michael Burnbaum, the Washington Post.
You've lost a lot of credibility. Go ahead. What else?
Mr. President, question on Robert, go ahead.
Americans who have seen their retirement accounts fall in recent day are getting very nervous about these tariff conversations.
Oh, I think the tariffs are going to be the greatest thing we've ever done as a country. It's going to make our country rich again. We have many companies, as you know, auto companies are opening up plants now. We've had 4 or 5 announced already, but many more are coming. And we're basically going to take back the money, a lot of the money that we've given away over many decades. We've lost our jobs, we've lost our factories. We've lost 90,000 factories since the beginning of NAFTA. It's not that long ago. 90,000 factories, think of that. And we're going to get them back, and they're coming back, and they're coming back in records. Look at what happened with the big chip company, the biggest in the world, by far the most powerful chip company in the world, from Taiwan, and they're going in with $200 billion of money, and they're going to build something that's going to give us 35-40% of the chip market in one company. No, it's going to bring it back, and I think it's going to make us bring us to a level that we've never had before.
Is there going to be a government shutdown this May? Many of your supporters are concerned about conservative, your supporters are attacking SCOTUS Justice, Amy Coney Barrett. You put her on the bench. They're saying she's a DEI hire. Do you regret putting her on the bench?
Look, she's a very good woman. She's very smart. And I don't know about people attacking her. I really don't know. I think she's a very good woman and she's very smart.
Is there going to be a government shutdown at the end of this week?
Could happen. I mean, the Democrats want that. They want to destroy the country. So I can't tell you, but it could happen. It shouldn't have happened, and it probably won't. I think the CR is going to get passed. We'll see, but it could happen. You never know. The Democrats are out of control. You saw that the other night during the speech when they wouldn't stand up for 2 of the young ladies were killed by illegal aliens. One with the cancer, the young man with the cancer, and all you want to do is stand up and applaud the man and the boy, the young boy. And nobody's ever seen anything like that. They're out of control. They've lost their minds.
Mr. President, are you alarmed by escalatory rhetoric from the Chinese response to your tariffs? And are you planning to meet with Xi Jinping about trade anytime soon?
No, they took that rhetoric back, as you know. They were very tough. And I said, whoa, what's that all about? And that rhetoric was taken back. You know that, right?
My question to you is,
but if you know that, why would you ask that question?
are you planning to meet with Xi Jinping anytime soon?
Yeah, at some point I will. I have a very good relationship with President Xi. Very good. And at some point I'll be meeting with him.
Sir, do you think there's going to be a deal on TikTok soon?
There could be. We're dealing with 4 different groups, and a lot of people want it, and it's up to me. So there could be.
Who are you leaning towards?
All 4 are good.
You have said there's no feud between your cabinet members and Elon Musk. You
Yeah.
even had dinner with him last night, Secretary Rubio. However, tensions are high between your cabinet and Mr. Musk. How are you going to simmer down tensions? Does Mr. Musk need to back off?
Well, I don't think the tensions are high. Look, Elon's a very special person, and these cabinet people are special people. You know, these are very successful people, or they wouldn't have gotten, you know, they've attained the highest heights of government. And I think they have a fantastic relationship to Elon. And Doge has been incredible. You know, hundreds of billions of dollars of waste and fraud and abuse has been already found. And that doesn't mean they don't have a little bit of an argument here and there about something, or maybe personal arguments. There's not too many contract arguments. You know, contracts have been found. This is much more than just personnel. And we found hundreds of billions of dollars of fraudulent contracts, or very wasteful. But I think fraud. I think it's fraud.
There was just another plane crash.
And I think really the cabinet, for the most part, I think they get along really well with Elon.
There was just another plane crash in Pennsylvania today. Secretary Duffy's big concern is his department is being gutted. He's been, dealing with these crashes ever since he was sworn in. Does he have a legitimate concern?
Well, that has nothing to do with the department. That was a small plane, and that would have happened whether you had a big department or a small department, as you understand. It's just they have space like this. You know, they have times when things happen a little bit more often than normal, and then it goes back and you go many years without having a problem. I'll tell you, I think the Southwest pilot did a fantastic job last week when he lifted that plane off the air, because if he put the brakes on, that wouldn't have been good. And I think the license should be maybe revoked for the plane that got in the way from the pilot, revoked for the plane that got in its way. But the way he immediately stepped in the gas and lifted up, as opposed to thinking for about 3 seconds when it would have been too late. The Southwest pilot or pilots they did a great job.
Russia, China, and Iran are doing military exercises together. Does that concern you?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Why not?
Because we're stronger than all of them. We have more power than all of them. I rebuilt the military. Unfortunately, Biden did nothing with it, but I rebuilt the military. But we don't want to even talk about that. I think if you look at what's happening, and if you see what we've done, and if you see where we've come, and let's see what happens with the whole Russia-Ukraine thing. I think you're going to have eventually, and maybe not in the distant future, you're going to have some pretty good results coming out of Saudi Arabia this week.
Are you going to resume aid to Ukraine if they sign the minerals deal?
Well, I think they will sign the minerals deal, but I want them to want peace. Right
How do
now,
they show that? How do they show they want peace?
Well, right now they haven't shown it to the extent that they should. I think right now they haven't, but I think they will be, and I think it's going to become evident over the next 2 or 3 days. I think eventually, look, we have to have peace. And I'm doing this. Money is one thing. We're going to lose. They spent $350 billion on this, but the big thing, human life. Thousands of people this week. Thousands of young soldiers died this week. Hundreds of people died in cities in Ukraine. And we got to get it stopped. It would have never happened if I was president, and it didn't happen. This was not going to happen. By the way, October 7th wouldn't have happened. Inflation wouldn't have happened. The Afghanistan, the way not that they left, but the way that they left, it looks so bad. Probably the most embarrassing day in the history of our country. That wouldn't have happened. A lot of things wouldn't have happened, but it is what it is. I think we're going to have a good time. I think we're going to have a good result in Saudi Arabia, meaning they're hosting the various talks, and we have a lot of good people going out there, and I think Ukraine's going to do well, and I think Russia's going to do well. I think some very big things could happen this week. I hope so. So 2,000 people, at least 2,000 young soldiers have died this week. And this is almost on a constant basis, a couple of thousand soldiers a week. It's a killing field, and we got to stop it. And if I can stop it, I'll be very happy.
Would you consider lifting the intel pause on Ukraine? What does Ukraine have?
Well, we just about have. I mean, we really just about have. And we want to do anything we can to get Ukraine to be serious about getting something done. I say they don't have the cards. Nobody really has the cards. Russia doesn't have the cards. They don't have. What you have to do is you have to make a deal. And you have to stop the killing. It's a senseless war. And we're going to get it stopped.
You hesitated when Maria Bartiromo.
Where are we? Are we just about?
We're close.
We're just about ready to land.
Are you worried about a recession? Maria Bartiromo asked you, and you kind of hesitated.
I'll tell you what. Of course you hesitate. Who knows? All I know is this: we're going to take in hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs, and we're going to become so rich you're not going to know where to spend all that money. And I hope we can continue to go like that. We're at a very rapid pace. We have to make up for a lot of lost time. And the country was very poorly run for 4 years. That you know better than anybody. Nobody covered it better than you, frankly. It's an honor to be with so many great people. We have really great people working with us.
You said America is back, momentum is back, our pride and spirit are back, and we're just getting started.
Right.
What do you specifically want America to look like in 4 years when you're done?
Well, I want a dynamic country where the private enterprise carries the day, not the government. And I want a strong country militarily. We need that nowadays. You can see that probably better than ever before. So I rebuilt our military. A lot of it was given away to Afghanistan, but it was a lot, but a very small portion, in all fairness. But when you think about the billions and billions of dollars that was just handed over, but I rebuilt it. We're going to be rebuilding it again because we need that. We always need that. But we're doing a series of incentives, tax incentives and other things. The tax bill, I think, is going to be very important. The Democrats will fight us all the way. One thing I learned the other night, again, I could say, because it's my fifth such speech. And at the beginning, I said, I didn't know it was going to be as pertinent as it turned out to be, that no matter what I do, this group of people in front of us, I could come up with the cure to the worst disease that the world has ever seen. I gave other examples. I said, no matter what I do, they're going to sit there angry, insolent. You just see it. I mean, you see it, you can feel it. No matter what I say, no matter what I do, no matter who it is, they won't stand, they won't applaud, they won't clap. They'll just sit there with sour faces. And that's what they did. And, it was interesting. I said, I wonder if I should put this in, but it worked out to be true. And I think by putting it in, I showed that it was true. And it's sad because we're doing great things in this country. This country's really got a chance to be pretty quickly great again. I think the country has got a big light over it right now, and I've been told this by even other foreign leaders. We had Modi, we had everybody. We had from France to India to about 12 that want to come in. They all want to be here. Every one of them wants to be here. We had the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom who was here, and he couldn't believe. He said the difference in terms of the feeling about the United States is very different. It feels that we're back, we're respected again. We are respected again. And in a way, we're back, and it's only been a few weeks.
And you spoke to the president of Mexico today. I want to talk about tariffs because even as you're seeing this optimism and excitement, there's some nervousness over your tariffs. Markets have been selling off. People are not sure how to view it. Why did you roll back or put a pause into some of the tariffs until April 2nd?
Because I wanted to help Mexico and Canada to a certain extent. We're a big country, and they do a lot of their business with us, whereas in our case, it's much less significant. We do very little with Canada by comparison. And I wanted to help the American car makers until April 2nd. April 2nd, it becomes all reciprocal. What they charge us, we charge them. It's a big deal, but what they charge us, we charge them. But this is short term, and I felt that for the good of the American car makers and the MCA, the USMCA, it's Mexico, Canada. I thought it would be a fair thing to do, and so I gave them a little bit of a break for this short period of time.
But I asked you about this before, and I know you told me when I asked you, I said, you did use MCA, you put this together.
Yeah.
And yet then you come back and you change it up with these tariffs, and you said to me at that time, I did it because I can. I put an amendment in there, and I said in 6 years I can change it. But I think CEOs want to see predictability. They say, look, I have to speak with shareholders. I've got to make plans for CapEx spending. I can't if it's 20% one day and then it's off for a month and it's 25%.
Yeah.
So can you give us a sense of whether or not we are going to get clarity for the business community?
Well, I think so, but the tariffs could go up as time goes by, and they may go up, and I don't know if it's predictability. I think
so. That's not clarity.
No, I think that they say that. It sounds good to say, but for years, the globalists, the big globalists, have been ripping off the United States. They've been taking money away from the United States, and all we're doing is getting some of it back, and we're going to treat our country fairly. This country has been ripped off from every nation in the world, every company outside in the world. We've been ripped off at levels never seen before, and all we're going to do is get it back. We're going to get a lot of it back. We're not going to let people take advantage of us anymore. We're the United States. I believe that if Kamala had won, meaning that whole ideology, Kamala and Biden and Obama, that whole group of people, if they had won, I don't think we would have had a country any longer. I think this was somebody said it the other day, the most consequential election in 129 years. If they would have won, I don't think we would have had a country. Not only did we won every swing state. Remember, I was watching your show just before the election you were talking about. I think he's going to win 4 or 5. We won all 7. And we won the popular vote by millions of votes. We won the number of counties by 2,500 to 500, 2,750 to 500. And it's amazing. The map is all red.
Which is why I was surprised at the Democrats' behavior the other night, because you delivered among the most diverse, expanded audience, Republicans, Democrats, independents.
Yeah.
So is it just the Democrat leadership that does not see that?
There's something wrong with them. It's just something, I can't even believe it. They lost an election in a landslide. They were talking about men playing in women's sports. When I looked the other night, I made a speech. The Republicans were going wild, and the Democrats were having their little signs up, their little tiny signs. And I said, it's unbelievable. They don't get it. They don't get it now. And I think they're going to end up being a minor party if they keep going like this, because people don't want to hear about these stupid ideas that they have. Transgender for everybody. And again, the men and women's sports, what is that, a 90 to 10 deal? I don't even know who the 10 would be. But they're fighting for it. And I try and say to myself, because you always like to understand where your opponent is, whether it's in business or anything else, is there something I don't understand? But we don't understand it. You look at their theories on tax. All my life I've watched politics. I've always liked it. I've watched it. I participated, but from the standpoint of a donor. But I participated. And all my life I've watched politicians, we will cut your taxes. We will cut your taxes. These people say we're going to raise your taxes. This is the only time. It's never said. I've never heard it. They say it even if they don't mean it. We will cut your tax. These people say that we're going to give you the biggest tax increase you've ever had. And that's what they're running on. And I tell Republicans, take that night, because that was a great night. You got record ratings. You saw that. The highest rated speech like ever of its kind. Take that night and run your midterms on it and show us I'm talking about some young child with cancer or some young, beautiful girl like Laken Riley who was killed, and they don't get up. And they don't salute the mother who's there devastated. Nungaray, they don't get up and they don't salute the mother whose child was devastated. I mean, brutally killed. The young boy with cancer that wants to be a cop, and they don't get up and salute that child. They not only don't get up, they're angry. And the only thing that happened that was interesting really about it was that when I mentioned Ukraine and people being killed, they started clapping. And that clap was led by Pocahontas.
I saw what you said, and I want to ask you about Ukraine and the blow up the other day with Zelensky. Let me stay on the economy for a moment, because there are rising worries about a slowdown. You've got the Atlanta Federal Reserve saying we're going to have a contraction in the first quarter. Look, I know that you inherited a mess, and you said that the other night.
I've only been here,
but are you expecting a recession this year?
I hate to predict things like that. There is a period of transition, because what we're doing is very big. We're bringing wealth back to America. That's a big thing. And there are always periods of, it takes a little time. It takes a little time. But I think it should be great for us. I mean, I think it should be great. It's going to be great ultimately for the farmer. You know, don't forget, I made the deal with China on the farmers where they had to buy $50 billion worth of product. $50 billion from 15 to 50.
Did they
and it was
follow
great.
up and do it?
They did it when I was president. What happened is when Biden was president, they didn't buy any longer. Yeah, because there was nobody to call them. I used to call President Xi. I said, you got to do me a favor. You got to, live up to that agreement. And he was great. He did.
Before you came into the Oval Office the first time, you were a very successful businessman, very successful real estate executive. And a lot of people said, oh, this is the business president. This is it. He's watching the stock market. He knows all about, he doesn't want the market to go down. And now we've got tariffs and the market has been going down.
Well, not much. I mean, in all fairness,
you said, look, we're going to have a disruption, but we're okay with that. Is that what you meant? The stock market going down was the disruption? What other disruption were you alluding to?
Look, what I have to do is build a strong country. You can't really watch the stock market. If you look at China, they have a 100-year perspective. We have a quarter. We go by quarters.
That's true.
And you can't go by that. You have to do what's right. What we're doing is we're building a tremendous foundation for the future. Tremendous foundation. Everything's been taken away. We don't make ships anymore. We don't, you just saw one of the biggest shipbuilders in the world, one of the biggest shipping people in the whole world.
In the Oval Office with you.
In the Oval Office. He's announcing a $20 billion investment in the United States, which he would have never done except for this. But look at this. Honda, Toyota, they're all coming in. You take a look at what's happening. The chip maker, the greatest chipper, Mr. Wei, the biggest in the world by far, is going to spend $200 billion on making a massive plant to make chips.
So that's your message? Build it here?
Build it here, there's no tariff.
Yeah. The public companies want to make sure that we have clarity. After April 2nd, when those reciprocal tariffs go in, is that it? Are you going to change anything after that? Will we have clarity?
You'll have a lot, but we may go up with some tariffs. It depends. We may go up. I don't think we'll go down, but we may go up. But they have plenty of clarity. They just use that. That's like almost a soundbite. They always say that. We want clarity. Look, our country's been ripped off for many decades, for many, many decades, and we're not going to be ripped off anymore.
On the tariffs, what are the automakers going to do for a month? I mean, you say you wanted to help American automakers.
Yeah, I did.
You spoke with the three.
It's a transition period.
Okay.
And it's a transition into a...
Secretary Rollins, good morning. Do you have a couple moments?
Yeah, just very quickly. Yes.
Could I ask you a quick question?
Sure.
I've seen good morning. I've seen there's been reporting that the Justice Department is actually investigating whether companies are price fixing on egg prices.
Yes.
Do you have any comment on that?
So we're still looking into that. I don't have. Oh yes. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. First of all, the question on the Justice Department and egg prices is an important one. We are not read in on that just yet, but we're looking into it. We're more focused on how we bring the price of eggs down in the avian bird flu for everyone. A good piece of news we just got in the last day or two is that the average cost of a dozen eggs has now gone down $1.85 since we announced our plan about a week and a half ago on February the 26th. So listen, we're going into Easter season. This is always the highest price for eggs. We expect it to perhaps inch back up, but a good piece of news since we released our plan about a week and a half ago.
Secretary, what's your message to farmers worried about tariffs, retaliatory tariffs, and the uncertainty?
The uncertainty is real, and the farmers and our ranchers are concerned. The president has been very clear, whether it was in his joint session of Congress, his State of the Union, just over a week ago last night, whether it's that, whether it's the phone calls he's had with Prime Minister Trudeau, with our counterparts in Mexico, really ensuring that while tariffs are a very important part of his toolkit, he's been very clear about that, really since he came down the escalator in 2015. They continue to be an important part of his vision, and we're effectuating that vision. But there's also no doubt, and as I mentioned, as he has said, he always has our ag producers back and the farmers and the ranchers. The conversation he had with Justin Trudeau a couple days ago that was reported, where he got very colorful and very feisty with Trudeau about the 250% tariffs that we're putting on our dairy products. That's ludicrous and insanity, and someone has to right-size the ship. And he's been very clear. It's going to be a little bit bumpy for maybe a few weeks or a few months, but at the end, his vision, and again, what we're effectuating, is that our American farmers and ranchers, but truly all Americans, will be moving into an era of greater prosperity. We call it the golden age here at the White House than ever before.
There's obviously a lot of Americans right now who are hurting and are getting very nervous watching their retirement accounts fall and everything in the market. Can you promise them that in the long run, this pain those Americans are feeling today is worth it?
I believe in President Trump's vision. In the last White House, I ran multiple groups here in the West Wing. I'm now over at USDA. I saw firsthand his commitment, his passion for the everyday American, but especially those Americans with the least among us. I think it's really important to realize that Americans knew exactly who they were voting for on November 5th of last year, that he won all the swing states. He won the popular vote. Americans believe in his vision. And so as we move forward and as we're effectuating that vision, he is bold and he is fearless and he is unequivocal in his beliefs and what he believes will bring greater prosperity to America and truly make America great again. And what an honor to be part of that team. God bless y'all. Thank you so much. Really good to see you.
Thank you, Secretary Ross.
Thank y'all.
I hope I wasn't.
What took you so long?
The food was so good. Everybody had triples. Okay. All right. I want to thank my colleagues for being here. Durbin, Klobuchar, Booker. Now, yesterday afternoon, Elon Musk confirmed what many of us have long been warning about. Republicans are ready to gut Social Security and Medicare. Yesterday, Elon Musk again lied in an interview and said that Social Security and Medicaid, programs with tens of millions of people who need them, are riddled with fraud and abuse. When referring to entitlements, which is exactly what Social Security and Medicaid are, he said most of the federal spending is entitlements, so that's the big one to eliminate. Eliminate! Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Senate Republicans know their math on billionaire tax cuts won't work without slashing these vital benefits. They are so hell-bent on giving tax breaks to billionaires that they're willing to sort of just run a chainsaw across all of America, now including our elderly and our disabled, to achieve that goal of making these very, very wealthy people even wealthier. And you saw how Donald Trump, this is not just a one-off. Musk called Social Security a Ponzi scheme. The administration has cut lots of offices. I just learned that an office in a middle-sized city in my state, Social Security is being closed. The people don't know where to go. And Donald Trump, in the State of the Union, made up a whole bunch of lies, again, ridiculing Social Security. Americans certainly support eliminating waste, but they don't want to see their Social Security benefits taken away over a lie perpetuated in hopes of just slashing them to give tax breaks for billionaires paid for by the middle class. As Musk lies shamelessly about Social Security, he conveniently ignores the federal government already conducts an audit of Social Security every single year. He cherry-picks data to suggest that tens of millions of dead people are getting checks. This is a lie, like so many of his other lies. It's not just rhetoric. The assault on Social Security, as I mentioned, is already underway. DOJ has already taken over the SSA agency. Unlimited access to private data and benefits of tens of millions of Americans. The Trump administration has already begun to fire 7,000 staffers, shuttering local offices, exploding waiting times, delaying benefits. I asked my Republican colleagues over there, are you fine with this? Are you fine with decimating Social Security? Where's your voices? Do my colleagues agree with Musk calling Social Security one giant scam? They've done this before. Several times they've lost out, but they can't help themselves, because the only way to get the deepest tax cuts for the billionaires is dramatically hurt Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. Take it away from people, and the American people, when they see what they're doing, are going to hate it. Senator Durbin.
I'd just like to add the following. 73 million Americans count on Social Security to survive. For Elon Musk to stand before us and say that it's some kind of a Ponzi scheme, easy for a billionaire to make that claim, but for a lot of American families, it's a lifeline. I want to make one other point. He referred to the people on Social Security as part of the parasite class. The parasite class. What would you think of a businessman who's facing bankruptcy, who comes to the government and asks for a special loan under special terms so that his automobile company does not go bankrupt? That person, Elon Musk, that President Obama helped his company survive. Is he a parasite because he asked for a special favor from the government for this loan? The bottom line is this: Americans work hard their whole lives in the hopes that they'll have a comfortable, secure retirement. Social Security is one of the keys to it. When we watch what Donald Trump and Elon Musk are doing to Social Security, we ought to be forewarned. As much as at stake with this current administration and their cutbacks on basic benefits for Americans who work for it their whole lives.
Thank you, Richard. Senator Klobuchar, Minnesota.
Thank you.
Minnesota.
Okay. So when all of this started, on the day after the inauguration, we warned all of you that chaos would be up. We've been right. We warned you that corruption would be up. We were right. We warned you that costs would go up and he'd create disasters with these tariffs. We were right. And now we're here to warn you about something else. And that is their threats to mess around with Medicaid and with Social Security are real. It isn't just a game. During the joint address, the President spent 3 minutes mocking Social Security. Many of those claims that he made were found to be lies by major newspapers. It's a red alert for the 73 million Americans that Senator Durbin and Schumer mentioned, but it also for 4 in 10 seniors, Social Security is in fact their primary source of income. The President and his billionaire pal, the richest man in the world, have been looking for ways to pay for their tax cuts for the wealthiest. They're looking for $2 trillion. They are ransacking through the government to find it. Ask anyone that's been fired. Musk's team is now trying to fire 7,000 men and women who work every day to make sure seniors get their hard-earned checks on time. So I know a little bit about this. I've got a very strong state office that works on constituent matters all the time. I can tell you right now, when things get messed up, and they do for seniors, for our veterans, they're not going to get on an AI chat line right now. Maybe generations from now they will, but that's not going to work for them right now. And guess what else? They do not have Elon Musk's cell phones. The seniors of this country don't have Elon's number. They don't have anyone to call. That's why they go to the local offices. And often they will call the senator's office, and then we call someone at Social Security to figure out what went wrong. A spouse died. They don't know what happened to the check. They moved to assisted living. These things happen all the time. That's why we have these local offices. In addition, this administration has exposed Social Security data, potentially disclosing millions of Americans' personal information, as Tiffany Flick, who served as the Social Security Agency's acting chief of staff until she was forced out, said in a court filing yesterday. If Social Security's long-standing procedures continue to be ignored by DOJ, that could result in benefits not being paid out, delay in payments. The stakes are high. She is absolutely right. And to our Republican colleagues, with everything happening right now, we say they are elected officials. They are not subjects to a king. They have the ability to stand up. In fact, if 3 of them would do it in the House, or 4 of them, depending on the type of vote, would do it in the Senate, they could stop this. They could do something about the tariffs, and they could certainly do something about this assault on Social Security. Thank you.
Senator Booker.
So there's an old saying, and we all know it, if someone tells you who they are, believe them the first time. When it comes to Social Security, we're watching how Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and other Republicans are mocking the program, as the president did during his joint address. They're weakening the program by laying off thousands of workers, undermining the program's strength, and they're demeaning and degrading people who rely on Social Security, people who paid into it their entire lives, by using words like parasites. We see what they are doing to this program. We are seeing what they're doing to the retirement security of tens of millions of Americans. Our grandparents rely on Social Security. Our parents rely on Social Security. 73 million Americans rely on Social Security, and they have made it clear what they intend to do. They want to attack this program, attack the people that rely on it, weaken the program, and ultimately try to take away from the program in order to give bigger and bigger tax cuts to billionaires. This is outrageous. This is unacceptable. And we who believe in the program, who understand the strength and critical importance of Social Security, understand that this is an earned benefit, we are going to stand up to fight against Donald Trump, against Elon Musk and others who want to take Social Security down. The stand is clear. The President and Musk mock, weaken, and demean the recipients of Social Security, and we're going to stand up to defend it.
Okay, let's go over there.
I'm wondering why the lunch took so long. One Democrat came out and said that you had a debate in there. So are you on the same page? Is your party on the same page?
You know why it took a long time? We enjoy each other's company.
Leader Schumer.
Yes, yes.
What do you say to Democratic colleagues who say a government shutdown needs to be avoided at all costs, and therefore, even though you don't like that 6-month CR in the House, it's probably better just to accept it?
We're going to wait to see what the House does first.
Yes,
yes.
What's your reaction?
I've issued a statement on that. It's on my website. Yes.
What do you say to some Democrats who might go ahead and vote for this because they're concerned that if the government shuts down, that's a bad thing, or it gives Elon Musk more enterprise to go through the government?
We're going to wait and see what the House does first.
You're not giving any specifics to those members?
Called it, quote, the big one to eliminate. Earlier this month, he also referred to Social Security as a Ponzi scheme. Should Americans expect changes, big changes, to Social Security and Medicare?
President Trump has been unequivocally clear on this. He is going to protect Social Security and Medicare benefits and Medicaid for hardworking Americans who paid into these entitlement programs and deserve those hard-earned benefits. And unfortunately, the mainstream media has taken Mr. Musk out of context. I saw a Bloomberg headline that our team actually worked on getting updated and fixed because it was so wrong, and it took Mr. Musk out of context. What he was specifically referring to cutting was the waste and the fraud and abuse that does exist in these programs. According to an IG report from the Social Security Administration, there's more than $70 billion of fraud in the Social Security program alone that we know of. And so the president will continue to protect these programs for hardworking Americans, and actually cutting the waste, fraud, and abuse out of these programs will protect it for hardworking Americans.
But Caroline, respectfully, he said around $500 to $700 billion. There was no evidence to claim that, and also if that is the case, that would represent more than a third of what Social Security paid out last year, maybe 20% of Social Security and Medicare.
Again, if you read his full quote, he said, "We think," so it's an estimate based on what he's seen. He's not saying definitively, he's saying that's what DOGE suspects and thinks. And that's exactly why DOGE was created, to ensure that we are investigating the fraudulent spending, the wasteful abuse across our federal government. And I would remind everybody in this room that 77% of the American people support this effort by Elon Musk and DOGE to identify such waste, fraud, and abuse.
Caroline.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. For
You're
doing
welcome.
this. If we could just step back for a second. When President Trump last addressed the BRT when he was on the campaign trail, his big push was on tax cuts. He's going there today as he's proposing tax hikes in the form of tariffs.
Not
and
true.
I'm curious
He's not
for
doing
why
that.
he's prioritizing that over the tax cuts.
He's actually not implementing tax hikes. Tariffs are a tax hike on foreign countries that, again, have been ripping us off. Tariffs are a tax cut for the American people, and the president is a staunch advocate of tax cuts. As you know, he campaigned on no taxes on tips, no taxes on overtime, no taxes on Social Security benefits. He is committed to all three of those things, and he expects Congress to pass them later this year.
I'm sorry, have you ever paid a tariff? Because I have.
That's
they
it.
don't get charged on foreign companies, they get charged on the importers.
And ultimately, when we have fair and balanced trade, which the American people have not seen in decades, as I said at the beginning, revenues will stay here, wages will go up, and our country will be made wealthy again. And I think it's insulting that you're trying to test my knowledge of economics and the decisions that this president has made. I'm now regret giving a question to the Associated Press. Mary, go ahead.
Hey, Caroline, I have two, if that's okay. The first one was on Russia, Ukraine. I know Special Envoy Witkoff said yesterday that Zelensky apologized in his letter to Trump. Can you share any more about that letter and what else might be interesting from it that we don't know?
Yes, the president did reference that letter, as you're saying, in his joint address to Congress. And I do have an update. As you know, Secretary of State Rubio and our National Security Advisor Mike Waltz have been negotiating with the Ukrainians today in Saudi. They will be providing a full readout of that meeting very soon. But I can assure you and everybody here and the American people that the news we've received from that meeting throughout the day and the president has been briefed on is positive. This meeting has been productive. I will let Secretary of State Rubio and our National Security Advisor speak to the specifics of what has taken place today when they are ready to do so when the meeting concludes. Lindsay, go ahead.
Referring to Mahmoud Khalil, the president has said this is the first of many arrests like this. Does the administration have a rough estimate of how many arrests you're planning to make similar?
I don't have an estimate. I do know that DHS, based on very good intel that they have gathered at the direction of the president's executive order, which made it very clear to the Department of Homeland Security that engaging, as I said, in anti-American, anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas protests will not be tolerated. So since the president signed that executive order and since Secretary of Known has taken the oath at DHS, they have been using intelligence to identify individuals on our nation's colleges and universities, on our college campuses, who have engaged in such behavior and activity, and especially illegal activity. And so I don't have a readout on how many arrests will come, but I do know that DHS is actively working on it. And I also know that Columbia University has been given the names of other individuals who have engaged in pro-Hamas activity, and they are refusing to help DHS identify those individuals on campus. And as the president said very strongly in his statement yesterday, he is not going to tolerate that, and we expect all America's colleges and universities to comply with this administration's policy. Jasmine.
On Canada, after all of these threats to increase tariffs or turn off electricity, I wonder, does this administration still consider Canada to be a close ally of the United States?
Well, I think Canada is a neighbor. They are a partner. They have always been an ally. Perhaps they are becoming a competitor now. But as the president also laid out in his Truth Social post today, he believes that Canadians would benefit greatly from becoming the 51st state of the United States of America. And I actually looked into some of the research about the cost of living in Canada, and the cost of living is much higher than it is here in the United States of America. The average cost of a home in Canada is much higher. In Quebec, the highest tax rate for an income of $150,000 or more is 53.3%, more than half of Canadians' incomes they are being taxed on. So the president has made it clear that he believes Canadians would be better served economically, militarily, if they were to become the 51st state of the United States of America. Reagan.
Thank you, Caroline. A week ago, Attorney General Bondi said a truckload of Epstein files had been delivered to her office from the SDNY. When can we expect those files to be released to the public?
I would defer you to the Department of Justice. I don't have a timeline here.
Do you have any update on the JFK files?
I don't at this moment. Again, I would defer you to our DNI director, Tulsi Gabbard, and also the Department of Justice. I know that they are working on that diligently, as the president requested them to do. Christian.
Thanks, Caroline. Two questions. Since we've been talking a lot about tariffs, have there been any updates on standing up the External Revenue Service to collect revenue from that?
Well, we need reciprocal tariffs to go into effect first, and as you know, the president will be rolling those out on April 2nd, and then the next start of that process is collecting that revenue to ultimately create the External Revenue Service, which Secretary Lutnick is working very hard on and is quite enthusiastic about, if you have noticed from his media interviews.
Can the president do that through executive action, or will it require legislation?
Well, the president already signed an executive order to direct the Secretary of Commerce to establish the External Revenue Service, or at least to identify ways in which it can be done. I would defer you to the Department of Commerce for more on specifics on that. Sure, in the back.
Thank you very much, Caroline. I have a few questions on South Korea and North Korea. First question, as you know, South Korean President Yoon has been released from illegal detention. What is the reaction of the United States as an ally? Is there a possibility of a summit with President Trump when President Yoon returns? Second question on North Korea. North Korea launched the several ballistic missiles into the west coast yesterday. What is the White House's reaction on this?
Sure. Yes, I'll start with your question on North Korea. We condemn these actions, and we call on North Korea to stop their unlawful and destabilizing actions. As for South Korea, the U.S. and Republic of Korea